Well, now for something completely different. After this breathtaking, tense fight of very important character, just some nice example from Bundesliga. This was my game against Golubov in 2002, and you can find the full game with my notes in Megabase. In this position, in mutual time trouble, I managed to see some very nice tactics. So you see, if we look at the position, what we see first is that, like in almost all my games, both kings are insecure, and he will succeed who breaks through first. And if you look at the king on h8, it is important to see that he doesn't have many squares at his disposal. This diagonal is pretty much in white's control, and this diagonal could also be white's if he manages to cope with black's counterplay cleverly, and then black's king would have nowhere to go, and thus basically the position solves itself almost automatically. We just have to pay just some slight attention to black's possibilities. We go knight h3, knight h3, and now the threat is that knight would start jumping, and if we take this knight, then in fact black could get some counterplay, starting with queen f4 check. King g2 is pretty much forced. If I go king h1, then queen f3 is disaster for white. After king g2, we could go bishop h4 with ideas like queen g3 and queen f3. Who knows if white survives it? And this was not my idea at all. So after knight h3, in fact, white doesn't have much of a choice but to find a solution. We already mentioned that the bishop on c3 could be very strong on this diagonal. And of course it is logical that for this, black's bishop has to be eliminated. And thus the move rook takes f6 comes into consideration. And now I do not see any decisive checks for black. And if he goes like knight g5, I just go back, and in fact nothing happens. And the same pretty much applies to knight f4 or knight f2. So black does not create very serious threats at the moment. And so Golubov took rook takes f6. And at this moment it is very important not to recapture on e5 just automatically. In fact, black has a very neat trick to fight against it, and Mikhail Golubov did see this in mutual time trouble. And there is knight g5 check, and you would say that basically the position looks horribly wrong for black. His rook on f6 is pinned, his king is in grave danger, the queen out of play. But it just happens in chess that sometimes due to some tactics things grow together, and this is exactly the case here for black. Here, if I go king g3, then black goes knight e4 check, and I have no other move. I have to take f takes e4, queen g5 check, and after king goes, he could still give another check, recapture with check. I would be just winning with exchange up and the decisive attack. And the same will happen after king g1. But here knight sacrifices itself on f3, g takes f3, and queen g5, basically with a fork on g1 and e5. And you see, white's attacking position is very dangerous, but just some slight inaccuracy, the bishop on e5 will be exchanged and nothing will be left out of it, which is also very normal for the game of chess, especially when things become sharp. The precision is required up to the very last. And in fact, in this seemingly very complex position, the solution is very simple. In fact, white mates here by force. It just has to occur to you. We mentioned in the very beginning that these bishops, they control all the squares where black king can go. Basically, we do not need any other pieces. All the other pieces could be used just to distract black. And that's what white manages, just with queen b8 check. Rook takes b8, rook takes b8. And that's basically it. After king g7, there is rook g8 mate. That's what actually happened in the game. And after rook f8, bishop takes e5, queen g7, rook takes f8 is mate. And after queen f8, rook takes f8, rook takes f8, bishop e5, rook f6, bishop f6 is made. And you see, now if we return to the starting position, we remember that the first thing we saw was that our bishops could be potentially very strong. And that's exactly why we need tactics, in order to bring our good strategic ideas into existence. We saw our bishops, we managed to find a way to do it, and a queen sacrifice at the end, and logically enough, at the end, these bishops will manage to mate. And that's basically what you should be able to do after we finish our course of tactical lessons. We'll meet in our next lecture.